Bahamas employs over 500 people. Of the 500, how many of them do you think are Bahamian?
About 3/4.
Okay.
I will say 80%.
I would say all.
All?
I would say about 98%.
98%.
Yes.
I was going about 80%, so but 98 sounds better.
I'd say 80%.
I think about 95% of them are Bahamian, yes.
What if I told you 99%?
99% of the people is Bahamian?
99%.
That's true?
Excellent.
Yeah? So Cable Bahamas is entirely for the Bahamian people.
That is correct. Cable Bahamas is widely represented by Bahamians.
Well, now you know.
Good evening, Bahamas. You're tuned into MB12 Weekend, broadcasting from Cable 12 Studios on Robinson Road. Coming up tonight in news, the BPSU questioning how government can find money to pay Baha Mar workers when public servants are still waiting for their funds. The FNM to meet with the PM on Baha Mar, and it says there could be serious ramifications if the problem isn't fixed soon. Plus, how the Bahamas plans to compete with Cuba now that the United States has a better relationship with the island nation. I'm Paige McCartney. We've got those stories and more straight ahead on MB12 Weekend. Welcome once again to MB12. The Free National Movement has accepted Prime Minister Perry Christie's invitation to meet with him as government tries to resolve the Baha Mar crisis and mitigate its effect on the country's economy. Prime Minister Perry Christie extended the invitation to the opposition during a press conference last week, during which he called for all to put politics aside as the issue was of great national importance. In a statement released today, FNM leader Dr. Hubert Minnis said the party is completely committed to assisting the government and all stakeholders in any and all matters of critical importance to the well-being of Bahamians. He said in order for the FNM to have a meaningful and substantive discussion, it will request the government to provide access to all information and documents, including all agreements, minutes of board meetings, and minuted discussions between the relevant stakeholders, including but not limited to the government of the Bahamas, China State Construction Corporation, Export-Import Bank of China, and Baha Mar. Minnis said those documents would assist the party in better appreciating the details surrounding the decision of the Baha Mar to file for bankruptcy protection in the United States. Minnis said it's the party's view that the unfortunate recent development is shocking, disquieting, alarming, and unacceptable to all Bahamians, and that the national dilemma is bigger than political differences. The FNM said had the Prime Minister observed higher standards of transparency by properly communicating with the public and the opposition prior to the bankruptcy filing, his call for bipartisanship would be more readily appreciated and met with less cynicism. Minnis said the FNM remains committed to ensuring the government accounts to the Bahamian people, and it will insist the government be frank, open, honest, and transparent in dealing with what it called an unfortunate national tragedy. The FNM said it will also insist the government do all that is necessary to safeguard the income security and wealth of the land to the benefit of all Bahamians. No word on when that meeting will take place. While the FNM deputy leader says the Baha Mar issue has tremendous negative potential to push the economy back into a recession, East Grand Bahama MP Peter Turnquest says the events of the past few days are already causing a dip in GDP growth projections. International credit ratings agency Standard & Poor's has already threatened to downgrade the country's rating based on the outcome of the issue. While admitting it's not an easy issue for government to work its way through, Turnquest said all parties involved must play their cards right for the benefit of the Bahamian economy.
I think it has a tremendous potential for a detrimental effect, because we're not only talking about the 2,400 people that are currently engaged at Baha Mar, but we're talking about all of the service providers and all of those who would depend upon that resort being a viable player, significant player in the industry. when you think about the resort, it is not just a resort. There are all of the service providers. There's the airlift that's coming into the airport, which makes that a viable entity and has the potential to affect employment there. The food industry and the shipping industry and everything else that is connected to providing the services that are necessary for a successful resort.
Turnquist said he's hopeful there can be a speedy resolution to the matter, particularly for those employees and vendors who are most affected. He said Baha Mar's bankruptcy doesn't just affect the resort, but will have a ripple effect on many different aspects of the economy.
I am hopeful that the government of the Bahamas is doing everything that it can to ensure that there is an environment that is conducive to a resolution, and that they are in discussions with all of the interested parties as an interested stakeholder on behalf of the Bahamian people to come up with some kind of win-win kind of resolution to this matter in as quick a time as
The F&M deputy leader said the issue the country is facing right now with Baha Mar is precisely what the opposition always warned government to be more cautious with its fiscal projections.
Government has a tendency to announce projects as if they have happened, as if they've been signed, but they haven't been. The Prime Minister talked about projects in East Grand Bahama that's supposed to come on stream. Well, again, there are proposals, and there have been a lot of proposals over the years. Some will bear fruit, a lot of them will not. And again, we have to be cautious and cautious about what it is that we can reasonably expect in the time frame that you're proposing. Again, as the government, they have to be optimistic, and I can appreciate that, but they must also be realistic about how they build the spending pattern and the consolidation plan.
Meantime, government's pledged to pay the salaries of more than 2,000 Baha Mar employees while the property undergoes Chapter 11 bankruptcy isn't sitting well with its own employees. That's according to President of the Bahamas Public Services Union, John Pinder, who said he's been fielding calls from union members asking where their payout is since the announcement was made. He said government is setting a dangerous precedent that could come back to bite it. He added that he finds it funny that government can find money so quickly for private sector employees and not government workers, and it's causing them to lose trust of many.
So always a financial challenge as relates to the government taking care of its own employees, but it's quickly to take care of its stepchildren. The trust that the members of the Bahamas Public Service Union and staffers of the public service have for the government is being challenged, because when the government says that we don't have funds to do these things, Mr. Pinder, ask your members to wait. Now you could in 24 hours commit to a $7.3 million payment for salaries. How do I now tell my members who are waiting for their hazard pay to hold off a little longer because the government is trying to find the money?
Pinder says he has no answers for the dozens of people who have called asking when they too can expect government to pay them outstanding funds owed to them.
I just came out of Freeport 2 days ago, where I've been bombarded by a number of school board workers who were challenged that the government want to have them take July and August off with no salaries. Okay? We were able to at least get some sort of clarity to that they may be receiving their salaries. Person's been in the public service or working for the government 17 plus years, still not established because the government is saying we don't have the money. You know? How do I now convince my members that the government is being upfront with us and I'm not being blindsided?
Well, there's at least one positive, according to Pinder, who said he was happy that government has taken the tough stance of protecting the nation's sovereignty by ensuring legal proceedings happen in Bahamian courts. However, he questioned where the protection is for Baha Mar workers.
One good step the government has taken is to ensure that we have some say as a country as to what happens legally. But everybody's only trying to protect their own interests. I don't see anybody really protecting the workers' interests outside of the fact that the government is now saying we'll carry the payroll for a month. And this is a project that, can't fail. So all of us are saying it cannot fail because of the amount of lives that be impacted.
And Pinder said the union was always against Baha Mar's labor clause that insisted the majority of workers on the project be Chinese. He said it was argued at the time that Bahamians didn't have the expertise to finish a project of that magnitude on time and up to standard. But with reports of substandard construction and an opening delayed 3 times, Pinder said at least developers can't blame Bahamians for the mess they're in. While the Bahamas struggles with many setbacks of the multi-billion-dollar Baha Mar project, Cuba is poised for an economic boom that was signaled this week by a major breakthrough, the reestablishment of political ties with the United States and cruise ships planning to add the island nation to their itineraries, as well as commercial flights from the U.S. now going directly to that island. Despite all that, Minister of Tourism Obi Wilshcombe says it's not that big of a concern once officials come up with the proper strategies. Jasmine Brown has more.
According to the tourism minister, in order to properly deal with the opening up of Cuba, it will take a partnership between both countries.
I don't have a difficulty, and I do appreciate that the mystique of Cuba will cause many to be curious to want to go. Sure, that's going to happen, but the onus is upon the Bahamas to ensure that we keep our numbers up.
This week, there have been major developments for Cuba. The Obama administration has eased travel restrictions to Cuba, allowing Americans who fall under 12 approved categories to visit the island. A few days ago, Obama announced that the USA and Cuba have agreed to open embassies in each other's countries. As the United States resumes diplomatic relations with that nation for the first time in nearly 50 years, airlines have announced they are seizing the opportunity to deliver Americans to an island nation that has for the most part been a mystery to them. And as we previously reported in March, executives at the world's main cruise lines announced their intentions to add the island nation to future itineraries. They said while some of the Caribbean community may be apprehensive about their plans, it's an opportunity of a lifetime and should be viewed as such. Wilshcombe says it's definitely something that tourism officials are discussing.
The cruise lines, of course, that's going to take some dialogue, some discussion, but they're ready. They have cruise ports, and they can accommodate visitors coming to the country.
Wilshcombe says the key to not being pushed out of the North American market is creating a strategy that centers on establishing tourism ties with Cuba. He says it's for that reason that officials have had continued talk with Cuban officials with the hopes of creating package deals to both destinations.
I don't think we lose at all. I think we enhance, because what we've worked out with the Cuban government is a multi-destinational marketing where, for instance, the Chinese will begin travel to Cuba in September. Well, what we're working on is ensuring that they come to Cuba and come to the Bahamas. So what we're doing is we're working with the Cuban government. They've also given us an opportunity to work out of some of their offices in Europe, where they do very good business, and that's intended to talk about you can have 2 for the price of 1. Go to Cuba first, come to the Bahamas, come to the Bahamas first, go to Cuba. So we're working with them.
Wilshcombe says the bottom line is the Bahamas will have to come up with ways of staying relevant. Reporting for NB12, I'm Jasmine Brown.
And police need your help as they investigate the shooting death of a man early this morning. Reports are that just after 2 a.m., police responded to reports of gunfire in the Fire Trail Road East area. When they arrived, police discovered a man had been shot to death as he was sitting in the front seat of a Honda Accord. The victim was pronounced dead at the scene. His death marks the 75th murder for the year. And police are also investigating 2 armed robberies they need your help solving. The first one occurred just after 11 last night outside of a nightclub on Gladstone Road. Police say a man was accosted by an armed assailant who robbed him of cash and sped off in the victim's gray Kia Rio vehicle. The second incident happened a short while later. Police said shortly after 1 a.m. a man was leaving a nightclub in the Montel Heights area when 4 men armed with a handgun robbed him of cash in a white flatbed truck that they sped off in. If you have any information that can help police in their investigations, they want you to contact them at 328-TIPS. When NB12 returns, a civic group seeking to galvanize Bahamians to urge for the enforcement of the Freedom of Information Act. And later, we count down the top quotes and news this week. We've got those stories and more when we come right back.